And I'm back with more Ace Attorney Justice for All. We're smack dab in the middle of Adrian Andrews' testimony, and she's going to keep on going. Excuse me. From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. But he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. And my thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course. The button and the knife. But I am his manager, so I felt I had to protect him. This does account for everything. Well, I am the logical type. We're finally seeing her true self. She's more nervous than a scared rabbit. If the defense can find no fault with this testimony, I'm going to make a ruling. Please keep that in mind while you cross-examine. Looks like somehow everything has swung in the opposite end again. That just means I have to put my weight into this and turn this logic upside down. Sorry. Had some water before I started. Must have got caught in my throat. You can hardly call this knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well be a clear camouflage. Then what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought. And during the fight, the killer ripped off the button in the jamming ninja costume. You're talking about this one. That button was found in the pleats of his akama, isn't that correct? I would think that it makes it decisive evidence. Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of men who can't gracefully accept defeat. Thank goodness Mia can still look at me. With an icy stare, yes. Fix Mr. Wright's sake, please. Fix this part of your testimony. God damn, what the fuck? This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states the cause of death was strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation? The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had been already dead. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. The button has this victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off the costume, but when? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly, which means it's impossible that this button was torn off during the struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in the fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There's no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off by the victim's already dead body. Order, What's the meaning of this, Wright? So what if the button was torn off of the body when it was already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question. Why was the button torn off? What purpose does it serve? What purpose? We now know that this button was not torn off during the fight, so the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip it off his body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't you? Mr. Wright, does this mean you already know what the murderer planned to do with the button? There's only one logical reason for someone to do something like this. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Engard. There's no way anyone would put a bloody button in their own pants. That's right. Mr. Engard was set up. But the real killer, of course. And the real murderer is... Well, who in the world was the real killer? Finally. I can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet. The real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. Engard, was... Mrs. Adrian Andrews, I choose you. You are Mr. Kurita's killer. What? Order! Mr. Wright, this is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence to support this charge? Any evidence? All of the evidence points to her. How preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me. I can't, can I? Would you care to test me? Then what about this knife? The knife was used to stab the victim after he'd already been strangled. It was used to throw suspicion onto him, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. That's, I think, her third or fourth pair. What about the button? This button was removed from his victim's body after he's already been dead. The only people who could have done that was the person who found the body, or the killer. However, if he was the real killer, there's no way he would have put such incriminating evidence in his own hakama. Pair number 4. The only person who would have done that is the person who went to wake him from his nap, which was you yet again. I see. Then what about that guitar case? This is also another piece of evidence that incriminates her. The costume was used to hide the killer's identity that they found at the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was such a costume inside the guitar case? It could have only been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you. But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case. And it was you who proved she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right. That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she touched the case, she would have been asked why. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. She purposefully left her fingerprints on the glass to show that to you. She was the classic dazed discoverer of a dead body. Pair number 5. And to top it all off, there's this photo. A photo of the killer as he ended the scene of the crime. Or exited. No reasonable person on Earth could believe that this nickel samurai was Mr. Engard, who would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Oh god, she's getting really frazzled. Speaking about tall people, Laura, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of uh-oh. Please stop it. Well, how about it? I've got her this time. Miss Andrews? I refuse to testify. What was that? There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something that can incriminate me. Well, yes, you are absolutely correct. The law does provide us a way to avoid self-incrimination by allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony causes damage. Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Actually, thinking back on it... Adrian Andrews! Yes? Think hard about what we have just discussed. Understood? Alright. That's it. When Franziska planted that idea in her head, guess you must have told her not to testify. A good job proving everything. But there's still one thing that you haven't done. What's wrong, Wright? Are you finished already? Have you run out of evidence? What's so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you realize this as well. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? Everything you've proven is circumstantial. Yes. You've yet to provide a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Kurita. Miss Andrews, did you want to kill him? I believe this may lead me to incriminating myself, so I abstain. But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think? Maybe so, or maybe not. There is nothing to prove either way. Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of in the first place. She's taking the defiant attitude again. What did I do? Somehow we've landed in the worst possible situation. I think we've reached a certain conclusion at this point. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid proof. No! In this situation, there is only one thing the court can do, and that is declare a recess. I request that both the prosecution and defense look further into this matter, and at tomorrow's trial... Tomorrow? We don't have a tomorrow! If we don't get a guilty verdict... Please, wait! That's not necessary! This trial must continue! What are you getting at? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Let this trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then... Huh? But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Then the court is... What? It's not impossible for this trial to continue. Mr. Edgeworth, what's... It's true Miss Andrews holds the right to self-incriminate, or against self-incrimination. However, if the topic of conversation was something unrelated, then she has no right to withhold it. That's true, but actually, there's one thing I am curious about. Miss Andrews, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice. Yes, and? I can't help but think how unnatural that is. Usually, when someone finds a dead body, they're shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. So my actions were unusual, but I've already... Before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your actions, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like her to testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read on him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know. The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews? That glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw the messy state. And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking. When I saw him sitting like that, I thought he was dead. Didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I just thought he fainted, so I went to pour him some juice. So when I realized he was dead, that's when I knocked the flowers over. Fourth and fifth statement. Oh, present the crime photo. Okay. Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony? I didn't think I needed to include something so trivial. Please be careful. If you can't find anything wrong, then there's nothing left. What the heck's going on in Edgeworth's brain? You may begin your cross-examination. Sorry. Still trying to clear the water. I think it was the protein shake, actually. That's what got stuck. I think I'm getting better, though. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him? No, not at all. Even though this is what you saw? Ah! What's the meaning of this? Isn't it obvious? There's a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Kurita's chest. Anyone who saw the scene would have immediately thought he was dead. I doubt a single person in the world would mistake this for someone who fainted. And then so nonchalantly go to pour something to drink. Your point is? Miss Andrews, your testimony just now was a blatant lie. Pair number 6. Your lie's proven one thing. That you were the real killer. No! Looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Mr. Matangard's not guilty after all. It's impossible. You're wrong. Miss Andrews, try to get some well, it's kind of hard. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt. I swear it. He's the one who killed him. But you were the one who refused to testify. And your reason for not doing so is you might end up incriminating yourself. It's because... I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you? I refuse to testify. There's no need for this court to continue any further. His innocence has been clearly demonstrated. Is it over? Have we found the truth after all? What's wrong, Phoenix? Usually the real killer confesses his guilt, but now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't. Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Angard. What? Your Honor, the prosecution feels it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time. What? The reason's quite simple. The witness has yet to speak the absolute, real truth. The absolute real truth? What are you... Witness, don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Matt Engard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. I was told if I spoke that it would be over, and Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is he talking about? I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Franziska von Karma. Don't you remember, Phoenix? Miss Andrews lives by gripping tightly to those words of another, because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. And Miss Andrews says she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss von Karma. Don't say a word, no matter what happens. If you do, he'll be acquitted. Miss Andrews unknowingly and undyingly believes in those words and is clinging to them. Then what do we do? It's the first time I've come across anything like this. But she has to be the killer, right? All I have to do now is get her not guilty. That's my only priority. It wasn't me. I'm begging you. Believe me, I didn't kill him. Help. Please, somebody help me. Mr. Wright, the court cannot continue like this. Therefore, I'd like to hear what you intend to do. What I intend to do? What am I supposed to say? Wright, I suggest you think very carefully. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind. Who the real mastermind? Isn't that obvious? There's no one else it could be except... What? Come now, what will you do? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? I have to win a complete acquittal. There's no way around that, but I can't bring myself to do it when she's like this. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you're really hiding. Mr. Wright, are you sure you know what you're doing? Sure. Mr. On-Guard would get an acquittal, but in his place, you would have to be found guilty. Is that really how you want this trial to end? Be quiet. How dare you? You're trying to trick me. That's enough. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear the defense's theory is the truth. You're wrong. What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this, however. What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? Miss Andrews, since you have absolutely refused to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop. Mr. Edgeworth! This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness. What? And because of this illness, she's tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop it. Please stop it. No matter how much you try to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report. What will you do now, witness? You know what I am about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews. The secret of her dependency. Having other people know about it scares her more than anything in the world. Please stop it! If people find out, I'll... Or if you're going to say you would choose death, that's no concern of mine. Edgeworth, how could you? However, before you die, I will pull the truth from your still-breathing lips. No matter what I have to do. So will you tell you this court yourself, or shall I? Either is fine with me. I'll talk. Please, just help me. Nothing matters anymore. Jesus, Edgeworth, holy crap. When I first saw him, I really thought he'd fainted. Honest. When I realized he was dead, that's when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room. And then I stabbed Juan's dead body with the knife and ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience. And that's why I ended up in this nickel samurai costume. Stabbed the body? Why would you do that? Isn't it obvious? To pin the blame on a certain person. A certain cowardly man. What do you mean by all this? It might take the court a little while to understand, but this is the truth. The real killer's Matt. That scumbag! I'll never forgive him. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time. Last time? So Mrs. Andrews stabbed the victim, Juan Corrida, in the chest with a knife. However, she didn't do it with murder in mind. She did it with the intent of framing Matt for the murder. And this is her crime. What? How's that possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer? Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence the cross-examination. So you're supposed to press every statement. But you could tell from a state he was in that there must have been a fight. Are you telling the truth when you say you had no idea that he was dead? He had a scarf tied around his neck, but the scarf's part of the jamming ninja costume, so I didn't think anything about it. His head was also tilted down a bit so I couldn't see his face. That's why I thought I'd wake him up and went to pour him juice. What is this plan you had? I knew right away that the murderer was Matt. I knew because, one, he was going to expose his weakest weak point to the world. So Matt did his best to try and stop him and silence him for good. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin the crime on it. So the forged pieces of evidence were the knife and the button. The first thing that came to mind was the knife. That way you could get the knife, correct? The knife Matt used at the dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought that if he used that, the police would certainly turn their eyes towards it. Matt was napping with his costume on at the time. I slipped in, took the knife, and returned to the scene of the crime. So you were the one who stabbed the victim with the knife. It gives me goosebumps to think about what a horrifying thing I did. But at the time, I couldn't control my own body. It moved on its own. And when I stabbed Juan's dead body, I realized something. If I used the button somehow, I could make him look even more suspect. So you thought to rip off one of his buttons and plant it in his account? Yes, that's what I planned to do. But things never go that smoothly, do they? An inconvenience. There was a woman with a camera at the ready loitering in the hallway. I'm guessing it was Lara. There was also a woman with a ray gun pacing back and forth. That's Miss Oldbag for you. I'd already been caught for an inside scoop, so I couldn't very well go out looking like myself. You were the one who prepared the costume, weren't you? Yes, I took it from Global Studios, and I put it inside Juan's guitar case before the awards ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Juan wanted to wear that costume and hold a press conference for it. He was going to disclose Matt's biggest secret. And what was it? That, I don't know. And I thought if I were to leave Juan's room in a nickel samurai costume, then people would think that Matt was the real murderer. I guess I wasn't careful enough to leave any footprints anyway, but I absolutely did not want anyone to know about the costume. I think we've heard enough. So after you went back to Mr. Ungard's room and planted the button. Yes, after that I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. I snuck it out of the hotel room and got rid of it. My word! What does all of this mean? Mr. Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt Ungard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down. Francisca, huh? She said that if I should under no circumstances confess to what I'd done, that if I just kept quiet, he'd be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe in those words. What this witness has done is clearly unlawful. However, as long as her testimony stands, we cannot be certain that she is not the real killer. Wait, the defense? Right. It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything. Yes, exactly. There isn't a single piece of evidence that points to her as the murderer. The cross-examination of this witness is over, and so is today's trial. You couldn't establish that the witness was the culprit, so let it go. But, Mr. Edgeworth, please place her under arrest for further questioning. Understood. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately. That is all. Court is adjourned for today. Today's trial is over, and I didn't win an acquittal. Witness, would you mind if I asked you something? Edgeworth, what is it? Before you leave court today, I wondered if I might look at one thing. That card in your hand, it's had my interest for quite a while. What exactly is it? Oh, this? Mr. Wright also asked about it. Although I don't remember at the time you asked me about it, I remembered just now when I found it in the room that day. The room? That day? I found this when I discovered Juan's body. It was lying there right next to him. You found this card next to the victim's body? I suppose I must have unconsciously slipped it into my pocket. But it's not as if this has any relevance in the case, does it? I guess not, but it's still a strange card, if you ask me. But as far as a clue to the case, I don't know... What? Witness! That card, you must give it to me, hurry! Edgeworth, do you have any idea what you have stupidly, yet inadvertently done? This... I can't believe you hid this from me this whole time! I didn't mean to. What's this all about? I've never seen him so emotional. That card. What in the world is it? What does it mean? Uh-oh. And we'll find out next time. Yay! But that'll do it for me today. I got through all of the testimony. And we'll get back to this next time. See you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.